So we're going to talk today about 5 smart keys or reasons to learn a second language. Now I'm going to tell you my personal experiences. It was the language of Spanish. And so I'm going to tell you why I learned Spanish and why you all should learn whatever second language you choose. And it's just going to be 5 smart reasons. Because most of the people I know, they either want to be 2 things. They either want to be rich or they want to be smart. I choose to talk about the smart part. Let's talk about why we're going to be smart, why we're going to be better, why we're going to enhance our lives through language. Learning a second language, all right? So 5 smart reasons to learn a second language. Now, before we get into that, I want to put some numbers here on this board, and we're going to talk about statistics just for a moment here, all right? 75%, that's the first number that we have. 75% of Americans do not know a second language. Do not. The second number is number 1. 1%, less than 1% of people in America that study in a classroom. If you study in a classroom, you can be proficient in a second language, but it's less than 1% of you all. Less than 1%. We're not even talking about a whole number. Less than 1%. However, here's the good side. 200,000. We're talking about 4 billion people in America, pretty much. So the number is kind of small compared to the number of people in America. However, 200,000 Americans are employed that can speak in a second language. So we're going to talk 5 reasons why it is smart to learn a second language and why I learned a second language. We're going to integrate this together, all right? All right, how many people can spell smart? Spell it with me. S-M-A-R-T. How many letters in smart? 5 letters. All right, that's why we're going to talk about 5 keys, all right? So the first letter is letter S. Stand out, absolutely. Who said that? Who said that? That was good, absolutely. It means to stand out. And the reason why it means to stand out is because I was growing up, I was a curious person, and I always found myself asking the question, how can I be different from the people around me? How can I be different? How can I stand out? How can I set myself apart? Now, remember, I'm born and raised here, right here in Atlanta. This is my home. I graduated from Frederick Douglass High School. So I'm in the heart of the city. So I grew up in communities just like you. I had friends just like you. I had associates just like you. I had peers just like you. But I always asked the question, how do I stand out? What makes me different from everyone else around me when we all look alike, we all sound alike, we all living in the same communities, we're going to the same schools? How can I be different? How can I stand out? How can I set myself apart? What did it for me? Language. Because out of everybody that I know, and I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of associates, a lot of companions, a lot of colleagues, a lot of professional people in the business world. I know a lot of people. But out of everybody that I know, especially the ones that look like me, that look like the majority of us in this room, they don't speak a second language. So guess what? I can't talk to none of my friends in Spanish. I can't talk to none of my associates in Spanish. I can't talk to none of my colleagues in Spanish because they don't speak a second language. Now, that's not to throw shade on them. That's not to say anything bad about them. However, what I'm sharing with you today is that it's smart. It's smart to learn a second language because you set yourself apart. You make yourself look different from everybody else around you that look like you. You look different when you speak a second language. That's just the bottom line. That's the first key that I want to share with you, is that you have the ability to stand out when you speak a second language. All right, the second letter is the letter M. How many people can tell me what the letter M stands for in the word smart? Money! How many people like money? Show of hands. I don't see enough hands. It's only a handful of y'all that like money? All right, well, okay. Since you don't like money, let me tell you, I like money. I like a lot of money too. I like money that make noise, and I like money that sound like paper. That's what I like money. And let me tell you why, because money gives us options. I'm not saying that you have to be rich, that you have to be loaded in cash or anything like that, but money does give you options. It gives you a lot of options at that. How does that relate to language? The national annual average salary right now is less than $50,000 a year. Less than 50. That's the annual national average right now. It's less than $50,000. People that speak a second language, generally, they make 20% or more than people who speak a single language. 20%. All right, that might not sound like a lot. That's okay. Let's continue looking at the numbers here. Now, depends on what field you're in. It just depends. It can change. But second language communicators make about $65,000 a year. $65,000. That's not bad. Now, when you get into the part to where you start providing a service or where you're providing material, you jump all the way to about $80,000 a year in base salary. That's the minimum, $80,000. What's the difference between that $80,000 minus $50,000 leave us with how much money? $30,000. How many people can use $30,000? If I reached in my pocket right now and said I'm gonna write a check for $30,000, every last one of you all would be up here on this stage right now. $30,000, that's the difference. But that's what happens when you learn a second language. I'm earning income right now because of a second language. There were people that were smarter than me. There were people that were more educated than me. But guess what they didn't have though? They didn't have a second language. So guess what that did for me? That set me apart, and that allowed me to earn money, earn income. I like money. You should too. It's smart to learn a second language. Letter A. What do you think the letter A is for smart? Who said some? I heard some. Who said that? Attract? Attract? Okay. Attracting opportunities. Attracting opportunities. That's what a second language can do for you. It attracts opportunities. You have opportunities that single language communicators do not have when you have a second language. I have opportunities that single language communicators do not have because I speak a second language. That's one of the benefits. That's why it's smart to learn a second language, is because you can attract opportunities that other people are not privy to. Let me tell you a quick story real quick. When I was in high school, there was this girl that I was interested in. I wanted to date her. But I was so shy, I didn't know what to say to her. I didn't know what kind of words to say. So I asked this old man at the time, I said, hey, how can I get this girl to like me? What is something that I can say to her that she might like me? And you know, he looked at me and then he said, you know what, young blood? He said, you never have to chase that what you have the ability to attract. That's what he said to me. You don't have to pursue what you can attract. And so when he told me that, it didn't make sense at the time. It made no sense to me at the time. But now I understand, though, because how does that relate to language? Is that language is the same way. You attract opportunities. You make yourself a magnet. People are interested in people that speak a second language because you can provide a service, as we just talked about. You can provide material. You can do so many things with a second language, and one of them is attracting opportunities. You get opportunities that single language communicators can't get. The final two keys that we want to talk about is the letter R. What do you think the letter R stands for? Relationships, absolutely. I heard somebody say that. Relationships, that's what it does, relationships. It expands your relationships. Now, these pictures that you see here on the screen, this is a time when I was living in Colombia, South America. Now, if you look at these pictures, I mean, I'm pretty obvious. I stand out here because I don't look like none of these people in the picture here. But because of a second language, I was able to expand my network. I was able to engage with people that I could never engage with had I not had a second language. I was able to go to a part of the world that I would have never been interested in going in if it wasn't for a second language. I was able to expand my relationship. The opportunity that I have now back in Colombia, South America, that I can go back over there right now from the relationships that I made when I lived there is from a second language. It was the communication factor. You can't talk to people if you don't speak their language. You can like them all day. You can be interested all day. But guess what the connecting factor is? Communication. Pursue a second language. It's smart. The final key that I want to share with you is the letter T. And this will make sense in just a moment. Why it's smart to pursue a second language. The T is for teaching. I'm not saying you have to teach in a classroom. I'm not saying you have to go get an educator degree. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you teach a second language, whether to your friends or whether you provide a service for a company or provide a material, you reinforce the language within yourself. It's always good to give and to give back wherever you can. One of the ways of doing it is through a second language. You teach it because you grow your vocabulary, you improve in the language, and again, you reinforce it. That's one of the benefits of teaching the language. And number two, as we said earlier, is you have a career and a money-making opportunity. It is very highly unlikely that you will ever be unemployed with a second language. Very highly unlikely. So it is smart to learn a second language. We'll just recap this real quick and then I'm done. The S was for stand out. The M was for money, earn income, be different. The A was for attracting opportunities. Open new doors for yourself. Open a new pathway for yourself. Go to places that other people can't go because you have a second language. The R was for relationships. You get to grow your network. You've heard the saying before, it's not what you know, but it's who you know. Absolutely, relationships. It's smart to learn a second language. And then finally, is to teach it because you have the ability to pour into somebody else. I hope you've been enlightened. That's all I have for you. 5 smart keys to learn a second language. Keep pursuing, keep going, keep learning. Learn that second language. See y'all next time.